like PR and I work in this sort of thing. So when you look at the sort of PR aspects of what he's done, it's like perfect. And then when you think of the reverse and you think of like when these petitions go to government and how the government didn't see the headlines the next day, Tories reject, Tories refuse to feed starving children. How can they not see that that is terrible PR? And everything that like Marcus Rashford has done is just, it has looked amazing, and it is. I mean, I think was it the task force he put together, which was all these like supermarkets and brands that have come together to ensure that they feed children. They're just jumping on the PR hype train. They're just doing it because it makes their companies look good. But who cares? They're doing something amazing. They're feeding children. They're helping people in need. So in terms of like the PR side of things, I think that has been interesting to look at as well.
Absolutely. I guess a common complaint from some, Paul, is that it's the lazy line that he should stick to football, as if simply being a footballer means he's not allowed views on anything else or the time to devote his attention to anything else. Some tried to claim his performances were suffering as a result of his campaigning, but if anything, the opposite seems to have been the case, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a lazy line to put out. That footballers shouldn't be getting involved in such matters, because quite clearly footballers reflect society. Of course, they should be getting involved in those sort of matters. And also, given the kind of salaries at Premier League level that someone can earn, I think that places more of a moral responsibility to kind of come out and be a bit more forthcoming about your views on what needs changing in society. I like Matthew's point there about the PR value as well, because I remember watching one of the press previews on Sky News at 10:30 when Johnson turned down the Rashford initiative, to extend the preschool meal provision, and even the lead writer of the Daily Mail was there saying, "This is a disaster. He can't do that. He's not taking on Keir Starmer here. He's taking on a footballer who knows what he's talking about." And as Matthew said, from the Tories' point of view, that was just a PR disaster. I think as well, what he's done quite cleverly is, by not making it a party politics issue, he's made it a political issue that goes across all spectrums. No right-thinking person could actually object to what he's tried to do, because, by every sort of moral standard, it's the only way forward. I mean, we look at Rashford's background as well. I mean, I think Man United deserve a bit of credit for as well in terms of the education they put in place for Marcus Rashford, because he grew up in Wythenshawe, which is quite a notorious estate in Manchester. I think at one time it was the largest council estate in Europe. It's an area of massive deprivation. The primary school he went to, which has the lovely romantic sounding name Button Lane Primary, when he was there in 2007, I found the Ofsted report for it, and they're saying that attendance was poor, attainment was poor, and 2 years later it was put into special measures. That was his primary school. Now, if he'd gone to his local secondary school, and once again I checked the Ofsted reports for the secondary schools in Wythenshawe, none of them get higher than satisfactory. Man United set up a link with Ashton-on-Mersey High School Academy in Sale, which is quite an affluent area, where they sent all their academy kids to. So Rashford attended there as a secondary school. When Rashford was there, it got outstanding. It was the full outstanding grade had been given. And one of the things the report said was the students were encouraged to speak, to have a view, to be educated, to express themselves articulately. So I think that decision as well to send them to that school actually gave him the confidence to realise his opinions were valued. As a matter of comparison, Gerard Piqué also attended that school when he was at Man United, and he's been quite vocal in terms of support for Catalan independence. So there is something about the education he received as well that enabled him to come forward and offer very, very considered opinions. And I think, as Matthew and Stuart have alluded to there as well, it's a heartfelt appeal. The guys lived that experience. You cannot contest real life experiences like that. And I think you mentioned, Aidan, that he's not been on the soapbox. No, he didn't have to be. It's just been very, very clever the way he's got his message out there. He's not upset people. He's not accused people. He's not tried to guilt trip people into getting involved. And straight away, I think, as Matthew alluded to there, firms want to jump on this bandwagon because they see it's good publicity for them. So if you're looking for a masterclass of how to conduct a campaign, then this would be a module in itself, the way that Rashford has simply united a whole country in favour of what's quite clearly such a huge injustice that at such a difficult time with the pandemic, etc., that the elements of society who were suffering the most were those who needed the help the most.
Well, speaking of masterclasses, Stu, you can introduce this as a module now on your college campus, can't you, of how to effectively dictate government policy from the sidelines. I mean, do you think his use of his platform will encourage others to follow his lead on issues close to them?
I hope so. I absolutely hope so. I think we talk a lot. I mean, we must talk most weeks, between us about football. And I think, one of you mentioned it at the beginning about how, football, is almost like a mirror of society, and, and society is mirrored in football. And I think what Rashford has done is almost, like you said there, is sort of proved a point that actually, footballers or professional athletes do have opinions, do deserve opinions, are intellectual, can use their elevated platform for the common good, and I think all of that, and especially to sort of look at what Gareth Southgate has done with the England team as well, and the young players that are there. I mean, we only have to look at Raheem Sterling, and the abuse that he suffered sort of in the lead up to the World Cup in 2018, and how well he handled that, and the maturity that he showed there, and almost turned the public opinion, or the certain sections of public opinion, about him as a footballer. And it's ignorance. A lot of it is ignorance about how people perceive footballers, and this stereotypical, lack of education. As Paul's clearly done his research there. That's nothing that, that's certainly nothing that can be levelled at Marcus Rashford or what Manchester United do. As I sort of mentioned at the beginning, these footballers are thrust into this high pressure situation, and they have to learn so much, and they learn so much in the way of social skills, how to conduct themselves. They might not learn trigonometry or Pythagoras, or what they're learning is they're learning about the world, they're learning how to conduct themselves, they're learning how to use their platform. And I think, like I say, I think what Gareth Southgate has done within the England team is give the young players a voice. He's given young players the opportunity. I think Raheem Sterling is part of his senior team, as he likes to call it, amongst his players, and Raheem Sterling is a part of that. And I think when you have players like Jadon Sancho in there as well, it's a very young England side who clearly get on really well together. They will have, obviously they'll have seen and heard what Marcus Rashford has done. They'll talk to him about it in person at the England get-togethers. And you would like to think that now this sort of glass ceiling has been broken by a high-profile footballer. And I think, like Matthew said, nothing bad's happened. Nothing bad's happened to Marcus Rashford. Nothing bad's happened to his reputation. And as you said there, Aidan, performances haven't fallen. There's been no detraction from his ability. What it's actually done is sort of put out and say, look, footballers do have opinions, they do have voices, they do have lived experiences. Whether the country decides to listen to them, the country will decide to listen to whoever it wants, whether they're artists, pop stars, film stars, that's irrelevant. The country will decide who it wants to listen to. And I think so long as the person who is doing the talking is making a considered, informed discussion or point, the majority of the country will listen, regardless of where their background lies or what their profession is. And I think that just hopefully that what Marcus Rashford has done, and I think he has done, I think he's done it really well, is actually show that, look, this is a young, an intelligent young man who has a point to make. And Matthew's right. This has not been aimed at the Tory party. It's not been aimed at the Labour Party. He's not aligned himself with anybody. What he's done is identified a problem that he can relate to, and he's passed social comment and given people decisions to make and asked potentially difficult questions of government. And there were questions that needed asking. Now, footballers are in a position where they can ask questions and are more likely to be heard than if we're asking the questions. And he's taken that responsibility and used it very, very well. And I hope that other footballers will also use this platform to ask other questions, be it racism, sexism, financial inequality, whatever it is. so long as they are asking the right questions and coming from informed, considered perspectives, I can only see it being a good thing for the country, good thing for government, and hopefully it perpetuates itself so that more and more young people get involved in what is happening with the not so much the run of the country, but how this country is moving forward, because they're the generation that are gonna inherit it.